Hi everyone, thanks again for joining on Sealed for Good. Today I'm going to talk about why sealants are not actual detailing systems and the difference between a sealant and a detailing system. So in our country we have our classes of membranes, particularly with the liquids where class 1, 2 or 3, and that does apply for sheets as well. And as many of you know, we can use a bond breaker as a sealant bead in corners at the wall floor junction, which passes as a bond breaker for a class 3 membrane. Okay. However, we've always coined the term detailing because detailing is more than just bond breaker. And as many of you know, we have our Elastoproof B50, okay, which we use for wall floor junctions. And we also have our butyl tapes, our BRW tapes, which are self-adhesive with our release paper that you can use at wall floor junctions. But you can also use these products at other areas where you need to detail. Now, I'll go back to a sealant. We've got sealants in our range and sealants are needed in this industry. But the difference between using a sealant for a bond breaker application versus detailing is completely different. Now, where would you might detail, you're going to ask me? Well, let's talk about situations where you might have a large gap, or you may have a junction where you need to give it reinforcement or elasticity. Now I'm thinking about a fascia on a balcony, an integration between potentially two different materials. Sealants are there to seal a gap. Really, that's what they're there for. So most of them have high extensibility and they've got very good water resistant properties as well. But we've got to understand that they have a limitation. And if you read the data on all the major manufacturers, and we've got some really good ones in this country, where they've got fantastic sealants from either silicons or polyurethanes and now MS polymers, they still have a limitation on the thickness and the depth that they can be used. And when you refer to the data, they often refer back to it used in a joint or a junction that's going to have extensibility, movement. Okay, but it doesn't mean that you can bog a big hole, a gap like that, and just gunk a whole sausage of sealant in there and hope for the best. It doesn't mean that you can bog a big hole, a gap like that, and just gunk a whole sausage of sealant in there and hope for the best. That's where we need to understand that there are other methods to detail, and sometimes even our tapes have a limitation. You may need to prepare that with some compound, which could be a fillet, something like our C-bed with 11Y or our C1P that could be thickened up, or there are plenty of other repair compounds that are used prior to a membrane detailing system being used. Now, what happens when we start to use sealants as the detailing system, it's an easy one because we've got a gun and we just sort of cork it all in, but then we find there's other limitations where you have either bleed or you can even have splitting from within the sealant because it's actually not designed to be put on that thick. And then that impacts the membrane application that's gone over the top of it. So the best thing to do is always, as we tell you, read the data sheets, and all those major manufacturers we've got in this country. You've got the likes of Bostik and Sika and Sudao. These are companies globally that have really good sealants in their range. Talk to them, read their data sheets and understand what the limitations are, because they may have recommendations that are required for those products being used. Some of them have membranes, some of them don't. And then we've got the silicon giants in the country as well, GE, etc. So we need to understand what their limitations are, how they should be used, and then always go with what the manufacturer's recommendations are. Sometimes you can integrate a detailing band like ours over the top of the sealant. Sometimes you don't need it, or you need to go in a different path. But the most important thing is to ensure that you are not exposing yourself as a contractor using a sealant to detail things that you think this is the way I should do it because it says that I can use a sealant as a bond breaker, and then think a bond breaker is an application for any gap or area that needs to be detailed. That's completely different. Detailing needs things like reinforcement, it needs things like expansion, contraction, and it needs potentially bridging properties. And that's what products like these offer you, and that's what we've always gone down the path of having our joint band, because it actually can bridge and it can accommodate the expansion contraction, or with our butyl tapes we can expand and go down the path of where you've got vibration, and that's a different application again, particularly with metal surfaces and plastic surfaces. If you have any questions on ensuring that you're not overstepping the mark or potentially compromising yourself with our systems with sealants, please let us know. We've got our Gripset SB, and even that has its limitations. But please give us a call, 1-800-650-435. Check out our data sheets or get hold of any of our guys out in the field. They're there to help you. Be part of that change. I'll see you in the next episode.